How to end your guilt trip in 5 simple steps. If you're watching this on the replay, I want you to just type in replay, #replay below in the comments of this video. This isn't going to be a 90-minute masterclass. It's only going to be 15 minutes long. So it's going to be nice and crisp and clear and sweet for you at home to get the most value out of this. And I'll share that with you, some of the tips as part of how to get over the guilt trip. What I first want you to do is to type into the chat screen, into the comments below, which part of the world you're watching from. Put it in the comments below. You might be from Melbourne, you might be from the US, you might be from the UK, you might even be tuning in from Japan or China or somewhere like that, even across the pond from New Zealand. So just check it in below where you're tuning in from. And so before we get started, this isn't a sales pitch. This isn't something where I'm trying to sell you anything big, crazy, like everything else is on the internet these days. However, I do want to gift you the opportunity for a risk-free 30-minute strategy call after this, which will help you to go from where you are now to where you want to go in the future and give you the strategy that you need to be able to get there and get the results you ultimately want and get over the pain and issues that you are currently facing. So to get into it, what is guilt? Guilt is telling yourself that you're doing something wrong compared to what you want, need, expect, or assume you should be doing. So it's the idea that there's like a difference, there's a gap. There's a gap between what you want to be doing and where you currently are now and what you're currently doing. It's almost like sabotaging yourself. So you don't even want to attempt or want to do anything because there's a guilt there. There's an underlying expectation in the time that you are taking, what you want to do, which is all part of guilt. It's the ideas that what you want to do goes against the rules and the standards that you've set for yourself. It goes against what would morally be right for you, what might go against the beliefs that you've grown up with as a kid, the expectations that you set for yourself and the standards that you have. Once you create a rule in that you know is true or that you feel is true and you go against something like that is hard. It's, for example, when you get pulled over by the cops for speeding or for being on your phone or for whatever reason. And as soon as you pull over, you feel guilty for doing something, even though you might not have done something wrong. There's no difference to, there's probably a moment when you're a kid and your parents called your name. Hey, John, hey Sarah, and there's automatically this feeling of guilt of what have I done wrong? What have I done? Why do I get defensive through this? And these are just some of the aspects of guilt that you might be facing. And so why let go of the guilt trip is important. It'll allow you to stop the self-destructive patterns. If you don't let go of it, it keeps you stuck with where you are. You keep focusing on your failures, and you focus on not being good enough. It corrodes a part of you that believes you can change. When you keep feeling guilty for your actions, you don't actually believe you could or might be possible for you to do something different. You create alternative agendas in your life, and you become almost passive-aggressive sometimes. You get to the point where all that guilt builds up, all that pressure of going against what you might want to do, but what you're actually doing. Defensiveness builds up into an aggressive form when you don't actually want to get fully angry, but it just might help a little bit to let it out. If you don't get over your guilt trip, it means that you won't keep boundaries or set boundaries in your life. These are the standards and the areas in your life that will create the foundation for helping you live your best life moving forward. And you'll become frustrated and resentful of yourself and others. You'll be overthinking, over-promising in your head about what you should do, what you might do, or what you could have done better. What might be possible in the future. You might still feel guilt for yourself. You might feel guilty for not doing it for your kids, for your partner, or a family or friend that you should have done something for. So before we enter the how of how to get over guilt, we're going to cover in who am I? Why listen to me? What am I all about? I'm an engineer by trade, and I've done some endurance events such as Ironman. Part of what I do is to solve problems, to create things that are beyond what's possible, to go beyond where you currently are now. As part of my role as an engineer was about how do I create problems and how do I find the solutions to some of these problems that keep popping up? How do I find the best way to make things work, to create efficiency, to create effectiveness in what's going on? And so what I do now is work it in the mindset. How do I create a more efficient, more better mindset to be able to get the most out of life? And part of the ways I've been able to do that is through Ironman and ultra endurance events. To do things that have gone beyond what most people feel is capable for them, what's possible, what's standard for them, to exceed expectations and tap into the potential, how to do things better. And so what's the lesson in this? In order to make your life easy, you need to do the hard things. You need to solve hard problems. You need to be able to do the hard things, to make the hard choices, to challenge yourself so that your life will become easy as a result. It wasn't always the case though. It wasn't always the case. I was very unfit as a kid, never really had much self-confidence or self-worth. I was very lacking in this area. I never really knew who I was, and I always felt guilty whenever I was in relationships. Guilty for not being there for them, for not doing and spending time with them. Guilty for not being enough, for not creating the time, effort, and quality that they wanted. I kept trying to give and be the people pleaser, but I never felt it was enough. I never could truly be enough. And so what I want to share with you is that the lesson from this is that you need to start somewhere. No matter how far away it feels, no matter how far away it is, you must start somewhere. And so now I'm a mindset and elite performance coach, and I run some crazy endurance events, similar to the Ironman, similar to running around a track for 24 hours. And the thing is, these aren't just fitness events. These aren't things that as soon as you do the training, you're able to achieve. I was actually trying to seek through these events was to go beyond, to find something more than what I ever could have found before. And through this process and through my coaching, I allow and know the secrets and the tips and ideas of how to tap into your potential, how to make your life better. When you go through some of these crazy events, you go through some of the training such as NLP and NLP Masters, along with countless hours of coaching people, you figure out what the strategies and the things involved would create the biggest change for you. For me, it's not about that 2mm shift. It's about how do I change some big things to create big shifts? Because when you change big things, when you invest in yourself in a big scale, you can create massive change in your life. To go from being overweight, introverted, and shy, and not really have much self-confidence, to be able to do some of these crazy events and to be able to help other people create better lives. So what's the lesson in this? If you change your mindset, you change your results. These are some of the clients. This is one of the testimonials that my client had as we're working together. I hope you're having a great day. I want to send across a message of appreciation to say thank you for the impact that you've had on my life, from us working together so far. This past week has felt like Mike Tyson's quote would, that everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. While I'm someone who works well in crisis, I've had a habit of ignoring or pushing down my own needs for others. If we weren't working together this past week, would have been very different. And for that, I can't thank you enough. What's the lesson in this? It's about caring enough to make sure that they get better results than they expect. I care about my clients. I really want them to do the best they possibly can, to get the best life and to exceed their expectations. So, guilt. How do you remove guilt? It's a 5-step process. It starts with an awareness, an activation, the assumptions, and then sharing and separating what it is. So we'll go through each of these one by one. Starting off with awareness. Awareness is recognizing the feeling, being aware that you feel how you are. What that means is that sometimes we don't actually feel these emotions. We don't feel the guilt. We don't feel the hurt. We don't feel these things that are coming up. And so as soon as you're aware of this, this is the first step to become consciously aware of the feelings that you have, so that when you feel like this, you know for next time why you're feeling the guilt. Next step is to activate it, to have activation. What triggered it? Is it something new? Has it happened before? After you're aware of having that feeling of guilt, after you're aware of what's going on and you feeling that feeling, you then need to go back and look at what triggered it, what triggered that emotion, what triggered that feeling. Is this a new feeling? Is this a new event? What's happened? And if it isn't new, has this happened before? Where has it happened before? After you are aware of what's happening and you can figure out what triggered it, then you know now in the future that you're actually feeling the guilt. You can become aware of it so that when you make the assumptions, what you're having with guilt, you know what the expectations you have when you have this. What expectations do you have and make up when you're feeling guilt? What is the story that you're telling yourself in this moment? How is this benefiting you? It's no different to the time when you're a kid and your mum called out, John, Mary, Jane. Actually, that would be a terrible name. I mean, if your name is John Mary, good on you, great name, fantastic name. But if your name was John Francis Miller and you hear your parents call out your name, there's always that dread and there's always that expectation that something bad might happen. The story that you're telling yourself at that moment might be that I've done something wrong. Might be that I haven't lived up to my parents' expectations. But how could you actually change that story? Because maybe, just maybe they might have said your name for something else. And if you do realize that the story isn't benefiting you, why? How is it actually benefiting you to know it's offensive? You have to be on alert. Why is it trying to keep you safe? So once you understand what the assumptions are, the expectations you have from each of those events, you can question it, query it, try to figure out what assumptions you're making on it so that you can realize whether these assumptions are good or not. The next step is to share. This is what I've allowed my clients to have. I want to shout out to Patrick. Last week we had a call and we talked about what my focus and goals were for the next 12 months. I talked about filling my cup up and taking better care of myself. One of my other clients we had 6 sessions, and for him, he was stuck. He wanted to work on his self-worth, procrastination. And so to get out of his head and to be able to get the results that he actually wanted. And so when you share, just like some of my past clients have, you find someone to speak to, find someone to express these negative emotions out. You can reach out to a coach, a friend or family. And sometimes you just need them to listen, to not actually give you feedback. As soon as you express out those negative feelings and you put a label on it, that's 80% of the work. The next step is then, after you label it, how do you know that it doesn't come back? It doesn't come back at any point. And so through that, the next step is to separate, to remove your own judgment of what's happening. Don't worry about the outcome. Just surrender to the feeling. Focus on what the next step is. After you understand and you share what has been going on in your head for each moment in a safe, judgment-free space, you can then allow yourself to remove the judgment that you've had on that event. After you've verbalized it, you can separate the event from the emotion, from that guilt. And you get to the point where you don't have to worry about the outcome. You just need to surrender to the idea, to a more positive way of being. And then you can just focus on the next step. It just might be small. The next step might just be listening to someone else, listening to what, say, your parents might have said, listening to what your partner might have said, to coming back to a breath in each of those moments. Type in valuable in the comments below if you found this video super valuable for how to get over guilt, and at least give you that basic understanding of what's happening with guilt and why it's important to get past. And so what's your next step? If you found this video valuable, now your next step is to book in a strategy call with me. There'll be a link in the comments below. What this strategy call will do, like I said before, will give you the strategy from where you are now to the future. So if these events keep popping up and you become aware of it, and you don't want them to keep popping up, you don't want them to keep affecting your life like they are, this strategy call will allow you to put systems in place to get us to work together to help you to get the best result moving forward. Still unsure? You just want more information. You can still feel that you're a people pleaser. You don't have any boundaries and you get frustrated and resentful of others. You don't feel good enough. Just book in a strategy call. We can have a quick chat to see where and how I can help serve you best. Last things. If you found it valuable, type in valuable in here, put in the replay, so that if you found this valuable, someone else might too. So I want you to share the love, share the experience in the comments below, and we'll see you in the next video.